welcome to today's episode of Nadee's Book Nook. So here we are today. It is Thanksgiving weekend in US, neighbor to the south of the border. And we just celebrated here in Canada Thanksgiving a month ago. And very soon we will be ushering in the joy of Christmas. So all these festivities around me, it remind me of the importance of gratitude and reflection. So with that, today I want to delve into the theme of freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and the freedom to be your authentic self. And to think and reflect on how they intertwine with our experiences and those of others. Well, Thanksgiving is a special time, isn't it? Like it's a moment to pause and give thanks for the blessings in our lives. And while we do that, however, it is also crucial to recognize the historical context of this holiday. We must acknowledge the experiences of indigenous communities and the complexities surrounding this time. So, as we reflect on our progress, let's not forget to be thankful for the positive changes we have made together as a society. And it's a great thing. So, living in Canada, I often reflect on the freedoms I enjoy as a woman of color, a migrant, immigrant. And I feel incredibly fortunate to have the choices and the opportunities that many around the world still fight for. And so this brings me to the story of Helen, one of the main characters in my book, Labyrinth of Dreams. So when you think of her in 1972, living in Sri Lanka, a single woman, a young woman, pregnant and alone. The person that was responsible for her pregnancy, the person that she loved, who gave her heart, doesn't want anything to do with her. So what was she to do? I could feel the pain and the fear in her. She faced unimaginable pressure in an environment where her options were severely limited. Like, think about that. Abortion was illegal, and it is still illegal in Sri Lanka. And a woman who is single and pregnant will be looked down upon and judged. She was aspiring to be a teacher. She was studying to be a teacher. So for her to be found in that predicament would have been career suicide. And not just her future as well as that of the child, that would have devastating consequences for her family as well. So when you think about Helen, a young woman, she didn't have any choice, in fact. The only choice she had was to give up this child for adoption. It's not something that she really wanted to do, but that was the only choice that she was given. And it wasn't her choice, it was forced on her. So, in that sense, her journey is a poignant reminder of what it means to lack freedom of choice. I've been recently reading a heart-wrenching book. It's about women who were forced to give up their children. It's a collection of stories, true events, true accounts of women who were forced to give up their children in the 1960s in North America. And this book was given to a friend of mine whose husband is adopted by that husband's birth mother. And even though my friend's husband, he grew up knowing that he's adopted, and later on in life, recently, he wanted to find his birth mother, and he did. And it was such a happy occasion. It was such a great reunion. But it also opened our eyes to the pain that his mother went through. She did not want to give up the child. but she did not have a choice. Just like Helen didn't have a choice in 1972, she didn't have a choice in 1960s. And it's not just in 1960s, it was the same case up until recently in North America, in countries like Ireland as well. But the difference is we have made some progress now. Many of these women will tell you, and if you read that book, you will find out that these women, it killed a part of them when they were forced to give up their child. And it was devastating. They lived with that throughout their life, regret, pain. And so these women, they carried this heavy, heavy secret, and they were burdened by it, all by themselves. So, when I think about these stories, and when I think about the society that we live in today, like here in Canada, I do feel grateful. I am really grateful for these freedoms that I enjoy. But at the same time, I look around myself. Because we enjoy these freedoms, it has become a part of our life, right? And we tend to take it for granted sometimes. And we forget what it is to live without those freedoms. And that when you forget how privileged we are, we run the risk of losing those freedoms. So I think it is vital that we appreciate these rights and recognize the risk of losing them. When we see the struggles for rights occurring in many places of the world, that should remind us that our freedoms are not guaranteed. So it is our responsibility to advocate for these rights, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. You wouldn't want your children to be in the predicament that Helen was. You wouldn't want your children to be in the predicament where they don't have the right to choose what is right for themselves. You don't want your children to be found in a situation they are going to be prosecuted for no fault of their own. I do think of Mala, who is still in Sri Lanka, and in any South Asian countries or African countries or other parts of the world where she could be judged and looked down upon for simply being an adopted child. So when we see this kind of biases, lack of freedom, lack of choices that people have, that women have, and how they fall victim to such situations in other parts of the world, we should remember that we must always work towards protecting the freedoms and the rights that we have. So, with that note, as we approach the festive season, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on your freedom and the sacrifices made to secure them. So let's honor those who fought for civil rights and ensure that we do our part to protect these rights for the future. So thank you for joining me today in this important conversation. If you like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until later, take care.